Scammed. I was $25,000 in debt to a dozen payday loan apps. After getting nowhere with my complaints, I decided to just lean into the skid. I downloaded every predatory loan app I could find and took out the maximum from each. With $300,000 in cash, I went back to my hometown and built my mom a 3-story house. The neighbors, drawn by the construction, all started asking where I'd struck it rich. Chris Turner, your gross misconduct involving these massive online loans has severely disrupted the campus environment. You're hereby expelled. The dean of students threw the expulsion letter at my face. Every eye in the lecture hall turned to me. I froze, my face burning with shame. Gritting my teeth, I squared my jaw and tried to fight back. Sir, I didn't take out any loans. I was scammed by a part-time job offer. You can't expel me for that. The dean gave me no room to explain. Still lying? The police have already investigated. They have witnesses and evidence. Are you still going to stand there and deny it? Beside him, the class president chimed in. Chris, we all know your family has it tough, but that's no reason to get mixed up in payday loans. Another student council member stood behind him, his face a mask of disappointment. Debt collectors are camped outside the main gate with signs every day. They stormed the dorms last night looking for you. Terrified a bunch of freshmen. The university is just expelling you. They could be suing you for the disruption you've caused. Be grateful and just go. Don't hold up our class any longer. A roar of frustration escaped my lips. I told you, I didn't take out any loans. Why won't any of you believe me? The class president and the other student grabbed me by the arms and hauled me out of the building, dumping me on the curb. Tears streaming down my face, I ran straight to the police station, desperate for help. But it was just as the dean had said. The evidence against me was ironclad. There was no way out. An officer tried to console me, his voice full of pity. Look, son, I believe you. I believe you just signed up for one of those online task scams to make a little side money. But because of that, you're now on the hook for a massive debt. Honestly, there's not much we can do in these situations. There are too many of these loan apps, and they all operate in a legal gray area. Our hands are tied. I couldn't accept it. But I'm the victim. Why do I have to be the one to pay it back? The officer sighed. Just go home for now, kid. $25,000 isn't the end of the world. Talk to your parents. See if they can help you through this. And be more careful in the future. Don't let it happen again. $25,000 might not be a huge number to some people. But for a kid from a dirt-poor rural town, it was enough to crush my entire family. My dad was paralyzed years ago. My mom supported all of us on what little she could grow on 2 acres of land. Before I left for college, she made me promise 100 times not to get into trouble, to study hard, to finally make something of myself. I was my family's only hope. And now, that hope was gone. I was a failure. My life, all because of some stupid online scam, was completely and utterly over. I left the police station and wandered the city streets like a zombie. I stumbled blindly through several red lights. I wished a truck would just flatten me into paste and let me say goodbye to this world. Chris, what are you doing? My girlfriend, Sarah, yanked me back onto the sidewalk. I shook her off and told her to go back to campus. She refused, sticking to me like glue. It's just some debt. So what? Your life is just getting started. This is just a little setback. I pressed my lips together. Go back, Sarah. I don't want to drag you down with me. Her eyes welled up. What do you mean, drag you down? You said you were going to marry me right after graduation. Are you backing out now? A tear I couldn't stop rolled down my cheek. I can't give you a good life. She threw her arms around me. That's okay. I can give you one. Chris, don't give up. I won't let you give up on yourself. You were tricked. You didn't do anything wrong. The pain in my chest was unbearable. But 25 grand. How am I ever going to pay that back? Sarah looked me straight in the eye. Why should you? I froze. What? She said it again. A scammer tricked you and put you $25,000 in debt. So now you're supposed to pay the scammer back. Something clicked in my head. The dark cloud that had been hanging over me suddenly parted. She was right. A criminal steals from me. And my first instinct is to scrape together the money to pay him back. What is wrong with me? With debt collectors hounding me, I had nowhere to go. I had to go back home. Sarah, worried about me being alone, insisted on taking a leave of absence from school to come with me. We never expected what we'd find when we got back to the village. My dad was dead. He was doing just fine a little while ago. My mom sobbed as she told me what happened. He bought me a new coat for Christmas. I never thought he'd lose hope like that. He just threw himself down the old well. He'd been gone for 2 months. She hadn't told me because she didn't want to disrupt my studies. She kept blaming herself, wondering if she hadn't taken good enough care of him, if she'd let him lose his will to live. If I hadn't found the old smartphone he'd left on his nightstand, I probably would have believed the same thing. The second I plugged it in, a flood of threatening text messages filled the screen. If you don't pay up, I'll kill your wife and chop up your son. Don't think we can't find you. Nobody gets away without paying. Only dead men. Pay up. Tomorrow I'm bringing a megaphone to your shitty little town and telling everyone what a deadbeat loser your son has for a father. You worthless piece of crap. The vile messages made my eyes sting. After every single threat was a desperate, pleading reply from my dad. Please, I'm begging you, don't tell my son. He's a good kid. He worked so hard to get into college. I can't ruin this for him. I only borrowed $500 from you. How is it now $20,000? I don't have that kind of money. My wife has had such a hard life. I can't put her through any more misery. I'm done. I'll give you my life in exchange. Just please leave my wife and son alone. My father was a simple, honest man his whole life. Faced with such vicious attacks, his spirit must have shattered. I opened the loan app on his phone. It was from some obscure company I'd never heard of. He had only taken out $500, but with the insane interest, the payments were now $250 a month for 2 years. His monthly disability check was exactly $250. They wanted my father to give every last cent he had to them, without even money for food. A few months ago, I needed money for tuition. To help me out, he had naturally used his disability check. That must have been when the payments became overdue. That's when the calls started, and when he was finally broken. Fuck, I screamed. Sarah's lips tightened, her eyes filled with rage. This wasn't suicide. Your dad was murdered by that loan company. Those soulless bastards. My mom, standing nearby, didn't understand what a loan company was, but she could tell from our reactions that something was terribly wrong. Her mouth hung open. Chris, did your father owe someone money? How much? Her eyes instantly turned red. How much do we have to pay back? I grabbed my mom's hands and knelt before her. Mom, Dad doesn't owe anyone anything. This family doesn't owe anyone a damn thing. Money from scammers, that money was ours now. In that moment, I made a decision. I took out my dad's ID and, one by one, applied for loans from every predatory app one could find online. At the same time, I didn't forget to use my own information to do the exact same thing. Sarah handed me her driver's license, telling me to use her name too, but I refused. After all, Sarah wasn't like me. I didn't want to drag her down this uncertain path. Chris Turner's really done well for himself. A $150,000 house, just like that. Incredible. You're a college kid, you've seen the world. How'd you make all that money? You gotta let US in on it. Yeah, share the wealth. Let's all get rich together. The main beam of our new house had just been raised. We've been celebrating all morning with a huge town barbecue. The whole community came by to wish us well. Their words were dripping with envy. My mom, who had spent her life hunched over, stood up straight for the first time. She smiled and chatted with the neighbors, and, just as I told her, she didn't say a word about where the money came from. She just said that I was grown up now, that I'd found my own way, and that I knew how to take care of my family. After the party wound down, the crowd started to disperse. Only our next-door neighbor, Caleb Vance, who walked with a heavy limp, was still lingering. Caleb was my age. We used to play together as kids. One time, he got a bad fever and was taken to the town clinic for an antibiotic shot. They messed up the dosage. It left him with permanent nerve damage. After that, he dropped out of school. He spent his days wandering around town. He became an outcast, someone people made fun of. He'd lost an eye in a fight. Remembering our childhood friendship, I grabbed a bag of leftover burgers from the kitchen. Here, take these. Next time my mom fires up the grill, I'll bring some more over. Caleb shook his head, refusing the bag. I frowned. What's up? Caleb bit his chapped lip. I don't want burgers. I need money. Micah told me this was trouble. I took the bag back and started to head inside. He grabbed my arm. His movements were clumsy, but he dropped to his knees right there in front of me. Chris, I'm out of options. My mom needs her medicine, and it's expensive. The money I make hauling bricks and mixing concrete doesn't even cover 2 pills. I'm not asking for a fortune, just enough to keep her alive. Please, man, cut me in. His face was twisted, his words slurred. Tears streamed down his cheeks. My mom saw the scene from the porch and sighed. Caleb's mom has been sick for years. When his dad was still around, they could barely afford her medicine. Now that he's gone, Caleb's been through hell. She looked at me, her brow furrowed. You should help him out, Chris. We're neighbors, after all. My mom had no idea where the money I brought home came from. She had a good heart and couldn't bear to see people suffer. Sarah was just as compassionate. You can live an honest life and still end up worse off than a scammer, she said. It's about time those soulless corporations started bailing out the poor for a change. Her words hit home. I went with Caleb to his house. Before we even stepped inside, the smell of mildew hit me like a wall. The small, cramped room was shrouded in darkness. Click! A single, dim bulb flickered on. My eyes fell on a small cot. Lying on it was Caleb's mother. Her eyes were half closed, her face was a waxy yellow, and her body was as thin as a scarecrow. She was barely more than a living corpse. But even so, Caleb never left her side. My mom brought me into this world. When I was a kid and we had nothing, she chose to feed me instead of herself. Now that she's sick, I die for her to repay that kindness. Chris, from this day on, I'm your guy. I'll do whatever you say, as long as it gets my mom her medicine. Caleb fell to his knees in front of me again. I quickly pulled him up. The secret of the loan money had been weighing on me, and I finally let a little of it slip. I looked at him, my expression dead serious. Caleb, I gotta be honest with you. This money, it's not clean. You need to think hard. Are you really willing to go all in? Caleb nodded without a second's hesitation. And so, right there in front of my mom and his, I took the burner phone out of Caleb's hand. I put his SIM card into my smartphone. Then, after a flurry of taps and swipes, I used Caleb's ID to register accounts on over 100 different apps. I took out $300,000 in his name. Afterward, I had Caleb grab a couple of empty feed sacks, and we went to the bank. As he slung 100 pounds of cash over his shoulder, his face was still a picture of disbelief. $300,000? Just like that. I gave him a subtle nod and a warning. Go ahead and use the money. You'll be fine for at least 6 months. But after that, I can't make any promises. Caleb's expression grew tense. Bro, are you saying we could be dead in 6 months? I shook my head. I couldn't give him an answer. After all, the loan's my dad, and I had taken out hadn't even gone into default yet. I had no idea what would happen when they did. But what did it matter? In this life, what's a bigger deal than death? 4. Caleb bought a huge crate of his mom's medication, enough to last her a lifetime. But I had gotten him $300,000. He had so much money he didn't know what to do with it. Finally, he made a decision. He was going to build a new house, too. Trucks delivered bricks and concrete. He hired a crew, and they got to work. Within 2 weeks, the frame of Caleb's 3-story house was up. On the day of his barbecue, his front yard was packed with the entire town. Everyone asked Caleb how he got rich. He didn't mention my name once. He just said, life's a lottery, and my number finally came up. But that night, Caleb showed up at my house with his aunt. Chris, I'm sorry to do this to you, but my aunt is desperate. My uncle fell off a scaffold a few years back, broke his spine. They got old folks and little kids to feed, and now there's medicine bills. Look, I knew Caleb's aunt. She was easily the poorest person in town. Her home was in even worse shape than Caleb's had been. An 80-year-old mother, bedridden, a 40-year-old husband in a wheelchair. The aunt herself had cancer, though she wasn't disabled, and they were raising a special needs child. For years, they had survived on handouts from their neighbors. Sarah saw the woman's patched-up clothes and looked at me, her heart breaking. The inequality in this world is staggering. The road to shared prosperity is long. Maybe a little Robin Hood action is the most direct way to help the poor. Robin Hood, I like that. Right then and there, I took the IDs of her entire family and started the process. Before withdrawing the cash, I made sure she understood. This money is for your emergency, but there could be consequences down the road. You need to be prepared for that. After this, you throw this SIM card away. Spend the money as you see fit. Caleb's aunt had finished high school. She knew what I meant by loan apps. She knew that if you missed a payment, the calls would start. She knew the people they sent were thugs who showed no mercy. and she knew that her credit would be shot, that she'd never be able to get a mortgage or a car loan. Of course, she couldn't afford a house or a car anyway. For her, just being able to live a stable life was already a dream. Tears welled in her eyes, her voice choked with emotion. "You're saving our family's life. Whatever happens, we'll face it. We could never pay that interest back anyway. Just help me borrow it. Get as much as you can." And in our town, there were countless families just like Caleb's and his aunts. Anyone with the means to leave had already moved to the city, bought a house, a car. The people left behind could easily be described as the old, the sick, and the disabled. With Caleb breaking the dam and his aunt opening the floodgates, the other struggling families in town slowly started coming to me. I didn't hide anything. I laid out the pros and cons in crystal clear terms. All these apps on the phone are lending platforms. Taking money from them is a loan, and the interest is no joke. You borrow 1,000, you could end up owing 100 times that. Of course, there's no way we could ever pay that interest back, so I have no intention of trying. How much you can get is up to you. If, and I'm saying if, these companies send people to cause trouble, we all need to know how to stick together and protect our home. I stood on the makeshift stage in the town square and explained the risks to everyone. Over the course of 3 days and nights, every single one of the 300 residents of our town took out loans, averaging $300,000 per family. For families with fewer people, I told them to use the IDs of their deceased parents and grandparents. Think of it as a little inheritance from grandma and grandpa. I said, it'd be a shame to let it go to waste. That one comment lit a fire. With a few words and a wave of the hand, new houses started sprouting up all over town. Our once destitute village was suddenly bustling with activity. Construction crews and painters arrived in droves. For 6 months, we woke up every day to the sound of firecrackers celebrating another house being framed. Every family was busy attending housewarming parties. Thanks to nearly 100 predatory loan apps, our town was finally on the path to prosperity. Steak every night, fresh fish for every meal. Even my own scrawny frame started to fill out. Perhaps because the money came too easily and life was too good, even the villagers who had moved their families to the city started hearing the news and coming back. And along with them came the aunts and cousins who had married into neighboring towns. And so, after dealing with a wave of the old and infirm, I found myself welcoming the warm embrace of my extended family. 5. Chris, sweetie, your auntie watched you grow up. I'm not bringing this up to ask for anything in return, just to say that now that we're in a tough spot, maybe you could help us get a new house too. Chris, we're all from the same town. Even though I'm married and moved away, we're still family. It wouldn't be right for you to get rich all by yourself and not pull your cousins up with you. When you do well, and I do well, everyone does well, right? Your uncle has been a construction worker for 20 years, and I still haven't paid off our mortgage. With the economy this bad, I can't find work. Your cousin is getting married, and I can't bear to see him go down the same road as me. A tiny 300 square foot apartment, a 30-year loan, a lifetime of stress and misery. Please help us out. My friends and relatives sat in my living room. My mom served them tea, cup after cup. As they shared their stories, she couldn't help but cry with them. It seemed that over the years, whether they stayed in the countryside or moved to the city, no one was having an easy time. Not enough money, not enough health. Jobs were hard to find. Life was far from perfect. There was always one problem after another. They had forgotten what it felt like to just eat a good meal, get a good night's sleep, and live a good life. Sarah listened from the side, sighing. There's nothing to hesitate about anymore, she said. Life is hard for everyone. What matters most is seizing the moment. Sarah urged me, and my mom urged me. I had no choice but to reveal the truth about my fortune to everyone. Once you do this, there's no turning back. My aunts and uncles listened, and then they all started talking at once. This isn't borrowing, it's a relief fund for the poor. We've been farmers our whole lives. Back in the day, we did the hardest work and got the lowest pensions. Now our bodies are broken. It's about time we got to enjoy life. My mother was hounded by one of these little loan sharks until she had no choice but to jump off a roof. What we're doing isn't illegal. We're just trading our credit for cash. They're the ones willing to lend it to us, not worried at all if we can't pay it back. What do we got to be afraid of? They were unjust first. You can't blame us for being unrighteous. We're carrying out heaven's will. If the law won't punish these loan sharks, we'll do it for them. Those soulless sons of bitches. The villagers were filled with righteous indignation. Those without much education were just happy to have money to spend. Those with an education who had been pushed to the brink by poverty weren't afraid of the consequences. You only get one life. Live it well first, worry about the rest later. And so, led by our town, a construction boom swept through the surrounding 10-mile radius. The low, dilapidated shacks and trailers that once dotted the landscape were replaced, in a matter of months, by rows of new houses. The construction workers who came from out of town didn't know the story. They thought our town had a great new mayor who was giving everyone subsidies to build houses. They talked about moving their families here. As life got better and better, my own heart grew more and more anxious. Sarah knew I was worried about the other shoe dropping, and she tried to cheer me up every day. What's there to be afraid of? We've come this far. What's going to happen will happen. There are so many of us. We'll face it together. With that, Sarah pulled me downstairs. And there, parked in our new driveway, was a Maybach. My eyes went wide with disbelief. Where did you get the money for this? Sarah dangled the keys. I went back to my old place yesterday, officially changed my address to here, and then had Caleb help me hit the apps. I immediately snatched the keys from her hand. Come on, we're taking this car back. You can't touch this money. Sarah pushed me away, her expression serious. Why not? Look how well everyone in town is doing now. Every family has a new house, and there are several cars parked in every driveway. You used to tell me the Maybach was your dream car. This is my gift to you, an engagement gift. How about that? My eyes turned red. I looked at Sarah's determined face and, pathetically, started to cry again. Engagement? How can we get married? If you marry me, you'll lose your freedom. What is freedom? Sarah asked me back. For a moment, I had no answer. Sarah took my hand, her face full of hope for the future. So I can't take a train or a plane, but I can ride in a Maybach. Or do you think our new house isn't comfortable enough that you'd rather be squeezed into some city apartment? Chris, you've already prepared yourself to spend the rest of your life in this town. By insisting I don't touch this money, were you not planning on including me in that life? I shook my head, the tears flowing freely. I'm just not sure if what I'm doing is right. This path, it's not how normal people live. Sarah laughed out loud. You're right. Normal people spend their lives as workhorses. Before 35, you sit in an office taking orders from your boss. After 35, you face layoffs and, crushed by a mortgage and car payments, you're forced to work 3 jobs. You get a little older and become a burden on your children. A tiny little house crammed with 3 generations. What's so great about the stressful, suffocating life of a normal person? Sarah pointed to the new house behind us. Look at this. Our house is thousands of square feet. The furniture is solid wood, no formaldehyde. We can sleep in any room we want. We can build a swing set in the yard, put in a pool. We won't bother the neighbors and get complaints. We can go fishing in the river without anyone telling us we can't. We eat farm-raised pork and organic vegetables. Isn't living well the most important thing in life? Sarah's words left me speechless, but they also strengthened my resolve. I reached out and pulled her into my arms. Sarah, marry me. I'll spend the rest of my life making you happy. And so, after hitting nearly 100 loan apps, I dug deeper and found even more. The interest rates on these platforms were far above the legal limit of 36% APR. They were blatantly illegal. In that case, we had no reason to show these vampires any mercy. The houses needed another story, and a Maybach wasn't enough for our transportation needs. At the very least, every family needed to add a Rivian R1S to their collection. Hello, your loan payment is now overdue. To avoid a negative impact on your credit report, please make a payment within 2 days. As time went on, nearly everyone in the town reached the overdue stage. At first, the collection attempts were polite texts and phone calls. But the longer it went on, the nastier they got. From threats to intimidation. Then from online to offline. I'm warning you, if you don't pay, we will kill your entire family. You better not walk alone at night. Our truck has your location, and we'll be there to run you over. You son of a bitch, why did you borrow money if you couldn't pay it back? I curse your ancestors for 18 generations. I hope you have a son born without an asshole and a daughter who becomes a whore for generations. Just you wait. See how I cut your head off in your sleep. The language was so vile that I had the whole town change their phone numbers. Out of sight, out of mind. Considering we were about to face in-person visits from violent debt collectors, we had to prepare a defense. We united several neighboring towns. We agreed that no strangers would be allowed in. Any car with out-of-state plates would be stopped, no questions asked. Across the 5 local towns, we organized a force of 300 able-bodied young adults. We set up a 24-hour patrol schedule to ensure the safety of our elderly and children. The first time the collection agents showed up, our patrol team sent them packing with bloody heads. The collectors had probably never encountered a situation like this. They were stunned. It was only then that they realized they had stumbled upon a hornet's nest. Pay you back. In your dreams, you're illegal loan sharks using scummy ads to prey on the innocent and the elderly. How many people have you driven to their deaths? You should have known this day would come. We got this money fair and square from a phone. Why should we give it to you? We're just redistributing the wealth, paving our own road to prosperity. We're not breaking any laws. We just don't have the money to pay. Take my credit, I don't care. You can't take it with you when you die. Living well right now is what matters. The collection agencies, realizing they couldn't win against the villagers, did something astonishing. They called the police for help. They probably never imagined in their entire lives that they who operated in the darkest corners of the law would one day be seeking help from law enforcement. The police, after hearing the story, found the situation incredibly awkward. In the past, their job was to stop collection agencies from using violence. Now, they were being asked to help a collection agency collect a debt. Well, this is a complicated one. With that, the police left. The debt collectors just stood there, staring at each other. With no other choice, the collection agencies began to sue us. But a case this bizarre was a first for the courts. It was completely unprecedented. Unsure how to rule, they could only begin the long, slow process of litigation. And because the number of people involved was so large and the scope was so wide, the process dragged on. What do you think will happen in the end? Sarah asked me. I shook my head, telling her I didn't know. I just remembered a few years back, I had a part-time job at a tutoring center. The center, knowing full well it was going bankrupt, held several massive promotional events, collecting millions of dollars from thousands of victims. When those 1,000 people filed a class action lawsuit, they were simply told by the prosecutor that the owner had declared bankruptcy and was unable to pay back the money. And that was the end of it. The owner, aside from being restricted from flying or making luxury purchases, suffered no other consequences. There were countless stories like this. A quick search online revealed endless cries from victims. If the law couldn't touch a blatant scam like that, what kind of punishment could my fellow villagers and I possibly face? After all, we had already given up our credit reports as collateral. 2 years after it all began, Sarah and I got our marriage license and had a wedding in the village. The celebration was incredible. Not long after, Sarah was pregnant with our child. I was by her side throughout the entire pregnancy. I did the laundry, cooked the meals, and in our free time, we would walk along the country roads, enjoying the beautiful scenery of our new town. 10 months later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I named her Evelyn. With my mom's help, raising a child wasn't too difficult for Sarah and me. Occasionally, I would have nightmares. I'd dream I was being chased by debt collectors, cornered with nowhere to run. I'd wake up drenched in sweat. After calming down and seeing Sarah and Evelyn beside me, I'd feel that my current life was almost too good to be true. It made me even more determined to cherish every single moment. Perhaps because of the increased happiness, many of the young people in the village got married, and soon there were many more children around. To solve the issue of their education, the villagers discussed it and decided that every family would chip in to build our own school. We built a K-12 campus from the ground up. Children from neighboring villages were welcome to attend. Although Sarah and I never graduated from college, we had both gotten into a top university on our own merit. When the school needed teachers, we stepped up without hesitation. Other young people with the same ideals and beliefs joined us, dedicating themselves to educating the next generation. Even my mom joined the school support staff, cooking meals and cleaning to provide a better learning environment for the children. The village was visibly improving every day. Old neighbors who had moved away started coming back, one after another. With more people came more vitality. I felt like I was a kid again. Every day at dinner time, I could smell the delicious aroma of home-cooked meals wafting from every house. For years after it all started, many of the loan companies that had sued us had already declared bankruptcy. The remaining ones, struggling to stay afloat, could neither continue their collection efforts nor handle the mountain of lawsuits. I collected the old SIM cards from the villagers and did a count. Of the nearly 1,000 loan platforms we had used, less than a third were still sending texts and making calls in the last 2 months. And the content of their messages was no longer as extreme. It was mostly just generic, copy-pasted templates. When Sarah heard the news, she wrapped her arms around my neck and smiled. As long as we hold out, this victory will be ours. I nodded, but the weight in my heart never truly lifted. Finally, at the end of that year, I was taken into custody by the authorities. The charge, felony fraud. The villagers hired the best lawyer they could find to defend me in court. Years ago, my client was an unemployed college student who first encountered online loans because he believed he could earn money through a part-time job, only to be scammed into a $25,000 debt. At that time, my client had no means of repaying this loan. Yet, under these circumstances, these lending institutions were still willing to lend money to him, proving they never considered whether he had the ability to repay. As for the other villagers, although they borrowed money from these platforms at my client's suggestion, they're all adults with the full capacity to make their own decisions. Their actions were based entirely on their individual needs and cannot be solely blamed on my client. These platforms were willing to lend huge sums of money based on nothing more than a driver's license to people with no ability to repay. This proves they accepted the risk of this debt, and that risk should not be borne by my client and the villagers. What business operates on pure profit with no risk? Today, predatory loan apps are rampant. Violent collection tactics are a daily occurrence. How many innocent, vulnerable people have they killed? How many families have they destroyed that they're now facing bankruptcy? I can only say it is what the public has long wished for. On behalf of my client, I do not ask the court to award him a medal for his courage, but I do implore the court to release him here today, with all charges dropped. My lawyer's passionate defense in the courtroom was stunning. It sent a wave of murmurs and whispers through the gallery. The courtroom buzzed with noise. It took a long while for calm to be restored. Ultimately, because the case was too complex, the decision was postponed, and I was released on bail to go home and live my life. 3 more years of eating, drinking, and sleeping passed. Sarah had now given me 3 children. My mom, surrounded by her grandchildren, dared not ask for more from heaven. She only prayed that the coming days would be peaceful. She often prayed to a statue of the Virgin Mary, kneeling before it for an entire morning. I knew she was worried about me. Well, I didn't know how to comfort her, Sarah said. Just let your mom do what she needs to do. As long as the case isn't settled, her heart will never be at rest. Compared to my mom's anxiety, Sarah was much calmer. Of course, she had always been unshakable. No matter what happened, she lived only for the present moment. The moment I married you, I'd already pictured the worst possible outcome. There is nothing I can't accept. I asked her if she had any regrets. She shook her head firmly. I am absolutely certain that I love you. All I want is to be with you. With a wife like her, what more could a man ask for? Sarah, I love you, until death do us part. Holding Sarah, I was enveloped by a profound sense of love. From that point on, I would fear no hardship. When my oldest was 9, my second was 6, and my youngest was 3, my case finally came to a conclusion. I was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison. Everyone else in the village was acquitted. The day before I left for prison, Sarah cried her heart out. But for me, this was the best possible outcome. In prison, I was a model inmate. I spent my time reading and studying, and I never slacked off on my physical fitness. I had a wife, a mother, and children. They were waiting for me to come home. Because of my good behavior in prison, I was released 6 months early. The day I returned, the entire town was waiting at the entrance to greet me. They hung a large red ribbon around my neck. They brushed me with fresh spring leaves to wash away the bad luck. I stepped over a small, burning fire to cleanse my spirit. Firecrackers were laid out from one end of the town to the other. Fireworks lit up the sky all day long. The villagers carried me home on their shoulders. It was only then that I learned my father's portrait had been placed in the town's new community hall, and that the town had set aside a special section in the historical records for our family story. Seeing the town filled with beautiful houses and luxury cars, my heart soared. I knew the darkness was over. The future was nothing but bright.